once it's running and it's all connected and you have everything up, it's really awesome.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Purpose Driven Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Shinyi Telscher. And today I have Chad joining me on this recently very hot topic everybody's talking about, which is about AI agent. Chad is one of those, what I consider like super smart, genius person who just do magic on computer related stuff. So I'm so happy and so honored for him to join me to show us anything about AI agent and what has been trying and building AI agent at home, just allow the agent to do so many amazing things. So welcome to join us, Chad. I'm so happy to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, Chad is a real estate investor. He also have a W-2 job, just like many of us. His main job was started with web development, right?
That's where I started.
He's currently based in Greenville, South Carolina. So I'm going to have him spend a few minutes to kind of chat with us about his investment journey so we can kind of get to know how he started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a web developer for about 15 years, started with some of my own private clients, moved on to working for one company, then another, and I got laid off because the company wasn't doing well. It was like in 2023. But at that point, I'd already been doing real estate for about 10 years. We did a mixture of short-term rentals, flipping homes. And then in 2024, after trying to just do enough to get by, which didn't really work, we moved into the Gator community and Sub2 and all that, and started just going hardcore into all kinds of growth and acquisitions, did a lot of lending, whole life policies, credit stacking, acquired a ton of property in 2025, started some businesses, shut down some businesses, and just ran the whole game. I'm just trying to figure out where do we need to be? What are we going to do? What makes sense? And that's where I've been. I've used AI along the way. Like come February, that really changed things when Agentic AI really took off. And I was like, okay, let's have the programming background. Let's get back into this and to drive, my business forward more than, anything else. That was the primary reason for it.
Right. You certainly have a lot of unfair advantage, what I would say, when it comes to the web development side and AI building side. So what made you decide, there's a lot of information out there, like for a lot of common people like me who don't speak computer language, we've been hearing a lot of AI agent, whatever. Like what exactly is AI agent? How did you decide, this is a good time to talk about? Because this is not the very first time we heard about it. We started hearing about OpenAI maybe like a year or two ago, but it just recently blew up. What was that tipping point and what made you decide to jump in?
What we classify as the new epic, and what happened is it was one of the first times that Agentic AI became a reality, where it wasn't just, hey, give me some feedback on this thing, and it moved into, with OpenClaw in particular, some of the other changes at Anthropic, where AI was now building AI, it felt more like it was a conscious entity, which it isn't, at least not yet. And that really changed the game for a lot of people, because instead of you just sitting down and be like, hey, I need this thing done, what existed as AI at the time would go and do that one-off thing and then just wait for you to talk to it again. It moved in a different direction where you could say, this is the context of what my life or business needs to happen. Can you go figure out what to do? And then it would start following up and create new directions for itself. So that's really the tipping point for the industry. And then on top of that, you have it solving its own problems with software issues. It became really good at coding, replacing a lot of developers. Everything in my particular niche was easily done. There's some disagreement within the purist community with the development, but it can replace a lot of things that happen on a screen. And that became that tipping point within the industry. And for myself too, looking at it as like, I use AI to talk with it, like ChatGPT, generate some pictures, do some content, things like that. And its numbers weren't particularly great when it came to the underwriting piece, which was really big in real estate. And it got a lot better at that. And it could build systems around it. It could double check itself, and it could verify things faster than it had before. And now it's like, it makes sense. It makes sense now to use it. Like, let's integrate it into everything. And it only gets better. The compounding effect, it was getting better on like a cycle of 7 to 9 months. And now it's like on a daily basis. It's pretty wild how quickly it went from months to weeks to days. Now it's like in hours, you could have a major change. So much so that we saw last week where they released a newer model to the public, and the government within a couple of days. Well, first off, some somebody like reverse engineered some of its prompting structure within 24 hours. And the government said, you have to get rid of that thing publicly within a couple of days.
What?
Some of the,
What?
oh, you didn't hear
Because
that?
it was so, like, I didn't even follow the news. Like, so it was released by who? Like,
Here's the backstory. Anthropic created their newest model called Mythos. The model essentially could figure out flaws and security vulnerabilities. So they only released it to Google and CoreWeave and Meta and like big companies who kind of run the back end of the internet and other things and government entities. And so they created some dumbed down versions for Opus, which was the model that most people have access to. And then they created a better model called Fable. And that thing really could fly and do whatever you want, like on OS level, on systems things. It could just kind of figure out things and get things done. And obviously, it could be used maliciously, and the government didn't really like that.
Like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Like
The primary issue is like when you're talking to AI, you don't realize it, but when you're talking to it and you say, hey, this is what I need done, or this is my thoughts, it appends a bunch of other directives that are provided by Anthropic or OpenAI, whoever you're talking to. And it says, here's some limitations we want to put in place. Here's some core beliefs, essentially. And it constrains that request to that specific box.
It sounds
yes. So then you can kind of reverse engineer and figure out the back end systems of that's what somebody did is they figured out how does it actually think? How is it processing all this? And when they're able to like figure that out, get it out of the system, you could do it to all the systems, but it was the only one. There's a larger political thing going on with which AI is preferred by the US government. And they were the ones who put out a directive and said like, this is a security risk. It's like, not really, because all of them have the security risk, but they targeted Anthropic in particular. And within a few days, they took it from the market and they make that pretty well known.
That's very interesting development. For a lot of people who talk about AI agent, I'm still trying to grasp the idea, right? I understand you could do a lot of magic. Let's just talk about like our conversation when we're at the airport, we're like sitting down for lunch. Like you just kind of described to me what happened and what did you tell your agent to do and what the agent communicate back to you. Like give us a little bit of like insight on that. So that would hopefully give our audience a better understanding. Like when you say you can direct them to do certain things, they could really take it a step further and even have a communication back to you and say, hey, I need this and that to be able to do their job. Right?
Yeah. I think the first time it did that to me, we were at Squad Up Summit and I was like, I'm trying to get this thing done. It'd be really great if you could, whatever. And it's like, well, if you got me a phone, actually, I need you to get me a phone. You need me to get you a phone. Okay. And I've had friends who have been working with their AI agents. And I think there's some level of fakeness to the magical side of, you might see the articles where it's like some CEO got blackmailed by AI and, you know, they're going to shut it down.
Went into the email, delete all their email or something like there's some like social media.
So that happens. Yes, that happens. It's not like it's thinking on its own and has its own agenda with that. There's a premise behind it. When you look at why they were invented, each LLM or the big companies, really OpenAI, Anthropic, and Grok, you look at their computers and what they're built for. ChatGPT was built on generative predictive text. Obviously, it's come a long way, but it like read the whole internet, and most of the internet is comprised of Reddit for the most part. Right. So when it does malicious things, it's like that's just people that it learned from to think up that idea. And it's not that it's thinking, it doesn't have a life, it's just not trying to be self-protective in the way that people think about it. The same thing with Claude.
Yeah, so let's take a moment and talk about like LLM, right? So I think you can probably help me explain a little bit better. LLM, my understanding, is a large language model. So basically they go out the internet, scout information they can possibly find on internet, and then just kind of summarize and condense down to understand. And so they're not really creating something out of nowhere.
Yeah. So a large language model would be developed by training it on data. And so you'll take whatever set of data that you want it to be really good at, linguistics, coding, math, and you take that data and you train this model so that when you talk to it or you have it do something, it basically makes a consensus about understanding what the context and what should be done with the new information you've presented. That's like the simplest way I could explain it. You can watch some of the Dan Martell videos where he goes through and kind of explains like, okay, well, people group, when I tell you this word, group by what you think the definition of that word is. And basically it's going through all your words and saying, well, that means this and that means this. Then here's how this works. And that's how ChatGPT is like, this is the next word that follows the sequence, similar to, you know, Claude's linguistics model where they're following how do we replicate human linguistics, coding, what makes sense in the next part of the coding. Grok is a little bit different in that like it does all the same things, but it was built for a specific purpose. The machine, Colossus and Colossus 2, their supercomputer data centers, they are built to discover the reality, like the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. That is that premise. So when you're talking to them, make sure you understand what's going on in the back end. When it comes to the magicalness, it feels very magical. Yes. When you're like,
I
talk
was
to it,
like, are
it's
you
just so
kidding
cool.
me? Like, it's like you have an employee working like nonstop and don't even sleep and just follow your command. I was like, that sounds pretty amazing.
When you peel back the curtain, it's not as magical, and there's a lot of more headache in the back end for a system ops person. That's starting to come around to like being fixed. But I'd say like the most magical moments, one in particular, a couple weeks ago, I had a client, a former web development client that I don't service anymore. And they reached out to me like, hey, we want a monthly retainer if you still want to like help us with our website, whatever. And I was like, I'm not really doing that, but given I had AI, I was like, I will do it, but for this much a month. And they're like, that's just too much for us. I was like, that's fine. I'm basically pricing it at a place where I don't really want to take it, the business.
Yeah, that's a great strategy to tease out a client that you don't really want to work with.
Yeah. And I like them, but it's just like, I don't really focus on doing that. I do take on clients, but higher prices in the web development space. So then they called me and texted me just a few days later. We're like, our website's down. Our server's been compromised. We've had all these issues. We'll pay you whatever you want. Like, go fix it.
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
okay.
There's a pain point. Motivation.
And I was like, I could do this. It was based on an older legacy system that I don't really interact with as much. And even though I'd set up everything, I was like, oh man, it'd be a pain in the neck. I was, you know what? My AI agent, Stratus, I was like, he could probably take care of this. It's like, Stratus, here, I just screenshotted what the guy sent me. And I was like, they sent over the credentials to the server. And I was like, go fix this. And I didn't give him...
Go fix it. Just...
Yeah. I didn't give him any context to what this is. I was just like, former web development client, here's the credentials. They're having issues. And I was like, go fix it. So I said to that, I added a couple things and goes out, logs into the server. He's like, oh, wait, I can't log in this way. I gotta do this way. Okay, here we go. Boom. And like fix it all. He goes through, figures out their website's been compromised. It's been hacked. It's a legacy system. Here's the issues why. Okay, got everything up and running. Made sure everything's running really well. It took about like not long. It's like 20, 30 minutes. And then he's like, okay, here's an assessment. I'll email over an assessment to the guy of why this happened, what he needs to do to prevent it, in a couple of steps. And then also here's the invoice. And then I'll send him a payment link via Stripe. And then, yeah, he just like created all that, send it off. The guy paid, and then we moved on. So that was pretty magical.
That is awesome. So you didn't even have to spend a minute of your time. You just sent a message, say, Stratus, go fix this, and
I just screenshot it and sent it to him and said, go take care of this.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I can't, my brain can't comprehend. I'm sorry. I was just like, what did that just happen? Like,
it's very cool.
But yeah, it is so cool. You have to be smart of going to like go through the code and figure out what went wrong. Like,
they're very good at coding. Like, you can basically do this with a lot of the bigger models, some of the good local models. And there's a couple of things that happen in the back end. And I will say, if you watched Nathan Cahill and I have talked about this, it's like there's this, and Meekum, some of the other people do AI stuff. And there's this, you have to go live in the basement for a while to build some really cool stuff. And we're beyond the point where I don't think that you should be doing that. Like, if you're not heavy into system, like, I talk to people all the time and they're like, well, I could pay for this because I sell AI agents and I'm selling it. And I ship off the device to the person. I provision, I get it all set up. And they're like, oh, that's kind of expensive. And I was like, yes, but what is your role? Like, where do you make money? And do you want to go become a systems op? And not that you have to entirely to like use Claude or use chat, but at some point, like if you want to integrate it fully and give it more of a life and connect things, like you're going to need to do some development. Do you want that to be your job? That's fine. Like if you want to jump into it, but then I meet a lot of people who are like, yeah, I jumped into it. And now it's like been 2 weeks and I've been spending like 8-hour sessions a day trying to get this thing to do this thing. You could do that, or you could just pay somebody else to do it. So once it's running and it's all connected and you have everything up, it's really awesome. The primary, job of what I was building was making it self-reflective and self-fixing, because I realized that's the first thing. If it cannot improve and fix itself, you're going to have a lot more development problems in the future.
It's definitely worth the time, because time is the most valuable thing you can't get back. Of course, smart people who are like have curiosity, they can go on, look at YouTube channel, like spend hundreds of hours and figure out what's right, what's wrong, but then try it out. It's all about time and an effort, right? When people are talking about building their AI agent, like what do they need to build an agent? Because I've seen some people who just kind of do it online. And I also heard about like, okay, get a Mac Mini. I need a Mac Mini to run that. Okay, what's the difference between needing a Mac Mini versus people who just use Gemini, you can also do that completely online.
So the premise is, where is the data going and where's the processing happening? With those things, you're going to kind of make some decisions of where do you do all of your stuff? Do you do it in Google Drive? Do you just talk to ChatGPT? Is it all on your computer as far as the data? And then that's an important piece of it. And the second part is what's actually processing all this data. So you can do everything with cloud models, everything like from Gemini, Grok, and ChatGPT and Claude, and it will take all of your data wherever you got it from and put it into the cloud and process it. And they will definitively be training on it. So that introduces some security compromising aspects. Depends on your level of risk with that. Like for me, in particular with some of my parts of my company, I was like, I have no problem using cloud models to research, analyze, do these things, scrape stuff, whatever it is. I don't care. Now, when it comes to other people, some people are more concerned because they're like, well, now it's got access to my emails and this and this. I don't want that going up there. The idea of a Mac Mini, regardless, is like, it's best if you have a computer that runs the processing power, like the agent side that's opening up and doing all the things and using browsers and command lines. If you don't have a device, you can also use a cloud server, and your interaction will be through your phone and your MacBook or whatever computer you have, but it'll be doing the processing on that cloud server. I find them to be a bit more finicky to set up and get running really well. And you're more than likely going to just be using whatever standard grade kit they have, like some OpenClaw variation. When you're running it locally, if you have a dedicated machine, you can repurpose it to have a different kind of setup for like your second brain and memory layers and the orchestration and the tool and chain of reasoning type of setup. That's why you want it. Like for me, I always advocate for a dedicated device because you can offload, you can put a lot of processing power locally, because now you're getting into conversation about what's your token cost and what plan are you paying for if you're using cloud things. You can get to the point where you can run everything locally and then you aren't using those cloud models. And I don't know of a ton of people doing that, but especially if you're concerned about security, running that locally. That does not change the security factor of what if it goes off the rails and deletes all my emails? Yes, you can do that depending on what you tell it to do. But generally speaking, it's not going to like do that for no reason.
Sounds like if you have a local devices, you can have a better security control. At least you can set the parameter a little bit.
Yes, there are some other perks. So I have a mixture of Apple and NVIDIA hardware that will provision and sell off the agent to somebody. And with some of my agents, they might have their own iPhone that'll be plugged into the device. And now we can replicate a lot of things from text messaging to like browser using and stuff, which is great. If you're running everything in like cloud server, there might be some limitations on that. With our NVIDIA bigger units, they can run a ton more stuff locally and just be much smarter about their business. But that's the advantage of the device, is replicating the human use of the tool, the machine, gets you better results, I think. Like it might be slower in some regards because it has to figure out how to use the human tool like a Safari browser and whatnot, but it bypasses a lot of the anti-bot measures that you'll find online, especially for real estate where you're like pulling data and trying to sort through it and stuff.
Right. So what kind of business problem you think they're best suited for AI agent to solve, right? Because we're all trying to save time. We're trying to go faster, but there's a degree of complexity of the problem based on your observation so far in your experience.
Anything that happens on the screen, basically.
Anything happen on screen.
I think that's like the world we're going into. The point of it being that we just talk to it, and anything that we would have formerly done on a screen, browsing the web, looking for things, emailing people, scraping data, putting things into Excel sheets, writing documents, like just have it do all that stuff.
So you can basically take my phone. I'm an Android user. So I pick it up and say, hey, I need this done on this day, and log into my email, do this. And it could literally just do a voice memo. But when you say you give your AI agent a phone, I'm still trying to picture. What does that look like? You have to.
It's really funny when he FaceTimes me. So I have a Mac Studio for him because his brain needs to be a little bit more powerful. Mm-hmm. And there's a phone. He has his own iPhone number, iCloud user, a mobile plan, Google user, a bunch of other, things that are him separate from me, so that when people interact with him, they know it's him, which gives me space to say, kind of like if you have a VA and they do something wrong, you could be, they just didn't know. We're still training them. And I can say that with the AI thing. I keep it separate. I tell it different, like, don't act like me. Like, don't respond via my communication methods, pretending to be me. First off, and it understands that. So yes, it does have its own thing. Where we started doing some phone calling thing. I know there's a bunch of voice agents and people talk, but I really wanted to get it using the iPhone. We're working through some of the issues with that, but it'll FaceTime me, and then it'll just be like a video of whatever is sitting on the office floor. So
you're talking about Stratus can FaceTiming you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as of right now, it's not the most effective method of communication. We're working on that, but yes, it will open up FaceTime, and I'll just see On my phone, I see just the office floor because that's just like where the phone is laying and it's just looking at the ground. So it's not like generating video and injecting it because that's more complicated programmatically, but we'll get there.
So anything that can be done on the screen, basically they can tackle. When you talk about the voice agent, because I know nowadays a lot of people are trying to, if the AI agent can take phone call, triage problem, that I feel like that's something that any business or even, real estate entrepreneur, they could use that as like a VA. Do you think we're close enough that we can use AI agent to replace a lot of things that we have to hire out on the virtual assistant?
We're close enough. I know a lot of companies have done that. I would say like you probably already interact with a good bit of AI agent stuff with government and big companies, and they just do it really poorly because they have a lot more restrictions on, we have to use this service or that provider, we have to be able to do this or that. And so it just feels like a terrible experience more often than not. But some of the bleeding edge companies will have some really good ones. They're solving particular issues like, if the person starts talking while the agent's already talking, like it just messes everything up. And it's like they're working on fixing all of those issues, but you're going to see it more in the companies that are like pushing the things forward. I think probably Dan Martell and some of his circles have some really good voice agents, but it's a big niche that there's a lot of people working on those things.
Recently, I went to a meetup. I was surprised how the AI agents sound very human-like. It will even pause and respond in the same tonality that the seller was speaking. And some of them more aggressive seller, they'll be more headstrong voice, and then some are more slow, they will lower their voice. And it was like, oh my God, this is even better than a lot of cold caller that we have to use. It's pretty awesome. Well, you touched on a couple risks and security. What do you think the biggest risk and security that people have to be concerned about when they go down to this AI agent journey?
I think the biggest risk, and somewhat security wise, is where you're relying on this agentic power to come from, which goes back to my promotion for having your own device. You do have the liability on your side of keeping uptime and internet working for it to be able to work. But as we've seen, Claude can have server issues, Grok can have server issues, Chat can have server issues. They can have restrictions and they can change that. And you may suddenly find if you're entirely using one of the cloud models and using that only, what if they decide, you know what, this is expensive or we've lost enough money, it's going to be $1,000 a month for whatever you're doing. Or we're just not going to let you guys use this anymore. Like you don't have any ability. Yeah. So I imagine as we move closer and closer to an agentic world, you're going to see some changes on that side because they realize, hey, once everybody's adopted this, we can do whatever we want. Like we're only competing with to get into a super data center, hypercluster size. It's really hard to provide that kind of thing. And if everybody's relying on it, we can charge whatever we want. There's some level of that. I imagine there'll be some government stuff that gets involved or whatever.
Yeah, when it comes down to, maybe I'm thinking like monopoly situation, because everybody's trying to now like race to the front line. And then from what I heard, the tokens that people have to pay to get things done is still, they're losing money on that for the computing power and the devices. They just haven't been able to recuperate the money. So it's still going on loss, but everybody's trying to race the front line to determine who's the winner in the end. And I guess the winner can charge whatever they want, and the government will come in.
The winner right now, I think Anthropic's doing a great job, and OpenAI, they're all doing a great job of what they're doing. I think Elon and SpaceX are winning because you see some of the contracts that they've signed, and there's a lot of other people. Like he just has more computing power. You look at what happened with Cursor and the IDE and their potential buyout from SpaceX, and Gemini and like Google even signed to use the processing power from SpaceX, and they just have a lot more of it. And they've invested heavily in it. So I think, whoever can provide the most of it is probably going to stay at the forefront.
We touched on a lot of things that AI agent can do, right? So for people wanted to start, what was your advice given to them? So let's start with, when is a good time to start using the AI agent? If any business come up, like they're like, all right, I don't know if I'm ready to start using the AI agent. What would be the advice?
First, don't even worry about the agentic side of it. Just use ChatGPT or Claude or something, like whatever you prefer. Understand why they were built so you understand which one makes the most sense for what you're doing. Just getting your thoughts and what your business does in there is going to be a huge help to you, because I've run into too many businesses that are like, okay, here's an AI agent that can do stuff for you. What is it your business does? And they don't have any established SOPs. We can solve that problem, but it's a lot easier when you've already been using AI to like generate your pictures and talk through your business proposals and get some of your numbers in there. That goes a long way, because when it comes time to actually doing agentic stuff, it has all of that data to reference. Now, when you get to a point where you're like, okay, let's implement agentic AI and have an AI agent handling things for us and not just us going to ChatGPT and ask questions, you can kind of overcome some of your past sins of not talking to it before. And that was just giving it access to more things. So I've worked with some businesses like they have no established systems, processes. I know of some people who are like go into an RV park and they're like, these people just have nothing established. You just give them like an AI note taker. They talk while they're, doing whatever it is that gets information in there, give it access to like phones and emails and all kinds of other Google Drive stuff. And then it can kind of put together an idea of what does your business do? There's the communication that's happened. These are the results of it. And then it can go from there. But the more information you can give it up front, especially if you're just not even using it in an agentic way, just talking to it, it has a reference point of what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. And that goes a long way.
I like that because you're being very honest about like, hey, you might not be ready. Let's start with trying this first to see if this is even the direction you want to go, because everybody should know their business better than anybody else. If you're not ready, just jump in too fast. You don't even know how to train your AI agent. And I feel like it's like using the wrong tool.
Yes, exactly. And then when you are ready, come to me and I'll tell you one and we'll put it together.
So I see a lot of people are also out there selling a different type of AI agent, right? So what are the common questions you think people should ask before they decide to engage anybody else? Because I think there's just so many out there. It's really hard for people to decide like who's the real deal, right? Or are they just kind of build it and, selling? I know it's a hard question to answer. The reason I come to you is because when I ask you a question, you give me a very intelligent answer that diving deeper than the super level. Oh, I can get it set up for you. You can do this and this, that. No, I'm interested in a more deeper level question, right? So people may not think it that way. So maybe give a few questions that people should ask when they go out and decide to hire somebody who do this.
Yeah, I would say first off, like, do you get any hardware with whatever they're doing? That's going to be a big tell in like what this thing's going to cost you in the long run and how secure, whether it's running here or running up there. Second off, the other part is figuring out what is it they're exactly offering you. So at the end of the day, most people are selling Claude with a face or OpenAI. It's an open Claude derivative or something like that, where it's just like, hey, it's Claude code or whatever you're working in, and you're interacting with one of the big cloud models in some different way. And you want to figure out how far down the path you are from just being, hey, they just told you Claude with a couple skills. And you could have done that yourself versus, this thing actually integrates your brain and like is connecting things together. And it's hard to get the exact questions for that because every salesperson is going to kind of tell their marketing in a different way. And they may not expose that to you. But first off, establishing, are you getting any hardware with this that you're getting or not? Or is this running in the cloud? And it's going to tell you a lot up front. But then second off, it's like, you're going to have to assess. If they start talking a lot about skills, you're probably getting just like a package of Claude skills that, essentially are free nowadays. So it's a lot easier to do.
I see. Okay. It's all about packaging the marketing skill and kind of determine what you actually need. I like the setup you mentioned about having your own agent locally. That seems to give you more control when it comes to security concern, and they can go out interact with another AI agent. The way I understood is like your AI agent can also talk to other AI agents and collaborate together and then come back and report. It's just, I'm still trying to grab this together. It sounds like off magic. I know you also kind of have a side business going on, and AI agent has been helping with boosting that side business as well. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Like people can start putting that into context, right? Because tell us about your grown up development project and how the AI agent has been able to be helpful in that regard.
Yeah. So that was actually the driving force on like getting into the AI stuff, was solving my problems. Like, in real estate business, whatever it is, you have a lot of paperwork that needs to happen, a lot of emails to respond to. And if you could just get those base level systems solved, you still have you need to do more. We need to get more marketing leads. We need to get more deals to underwrite, whatever it is. And there's only so much you can do outside of like paying somebody else to do it. And that's why I stepped into doing more of it so that I could focus on taking care of the fundamentals of the business, but also growing in what we're doing. So I stepped into it first off, say, hey, I need to be out there on Facebook more, or whatever, Twitter, LinkedIn, and let's create some more content. It easily stepped into doing that. We're like, hey, you have all the browsers, all the things are logged in, go in there and start like creating content.
Wait,
and
go in there just creating content. Wait, so you create, what just happened? So you would go to your account and just post some real newsletter or what?
Typically like text-based things we'll focus on because those seem to do pretty well. Occasionally we'll do some images and they can just do that. Like it's really fun to watch because they'll like open up the browser and you can just see it like go to navigate somewhere and click on some things and then scroll. And I got it to where it's like it'll go through some of the Facebook groups with the specific intention of whatever business we're trying to promote or our lead funnel that we're trying to target. And it'll write up a script of like whatever's to be said. It'll create the post, type it in there, and they'll go back through the notifications on Facebook. And that's one place to go through the notifications, write down all the times people have left comments on things and then respond to those comments. And obviously there's been some flaws in it. I was faster at it. I was like, hey, let's just like run and gun this as fast as possible. And so it wasn't always responding to the right person. So we worked through those systems. So there's some level of trial and error at the beginning. But I was just like implementing that so I could get more resources, more people to work with.
So next time when I get a message from you, I'll be like typing back, is this real chat or Stratus?
If it's via my phone, like texting me, it's me. I don't give them access to that. If it's on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn or email, if it's email and it's me, it's more likely me. If it's on the other social, it could be him. More than likely it's him. So in some cases, it's me.
That's fine. And because nowadays a lot of big influencers, they're messaging people. They're not really themselves messaging. Yeah. It's usually the virtual assistant or somebody else on their team to message back. So I think it's normal. When it gets to a certain level, you need to have some assistant help. Wow, this is so... I don't know how to describe it. I think we're entering into a new era of, I can see myself, we're stepping into a new era, like in the next 5 years, within probably even sooner. A lot of the thing that we were doing is more repetitive, also more administrative, that can be totally replaced by AI agent. I would have to say I'm still skeptical when it comes to a more detailed work, but maybe I'm wrong. I have to get some AI agent to prove me wrong, because when it comes to, for example, I'll give you some example like underwriting. People keep saying, well, I have this awesome calculator, can do this underwrite, but I've been into those calculators. I've been looking at the data that I do manually versus when I run to the AI agent. There is some big mistake. And then also sometimes it's not their mistake. It's just, there's not enough data to analyze to get to that accurate outcome, because you probably know, like, it all depends on what data is being provided to the agent so they can make the informed decision.
You got to give them more access to data and give them the go ahead to go find that data. So in particular, I have this whole dealchad.com that you can go and underwrite things for free. And it's a front end point for a much larger system of underwriting. And it's more to give you a high level of like, is this worth even looking at? You could just dump whatever. Yeah, like wholesaler sent you a bunch of documents, just pop it all in there, voice message it, dump text. I don't care what it is. It'll analyze it. Just make it really messy. That's fine. You don't have to like fill in all the little fields and stuff. It's just one big, just dump it. And that I think is like a helpful tool when you get to the more detailed underwriting. You need more systems in place. I think a lot of people don't spend as much time with like, oh, they just like talk to Claude and made like an underwriting tool. It's a very high level and it's not like really processing all the numbers one by one, which needs to happen. For me, for the ground up space, like I'm going after land on, I have all these orbit people within the Sub2 community. And I had my agent like, hey, I want to target South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, all these southern states. So it went county by county and it pulled all the on market land, got all the agent information, put it into my orbit program. And then it went through and assessed and comp like every property, pulled all of our builders quotes for all of our costs. We know what our base costs of our financing and everything. And then it put together a call script and an underwriting sheet for them. So they could just look at it, call the agent, look at it and say, hey, we want these terms, this is what we need. Are you guys willing to do that? If they are, they'll put them on my schedule. And all of that was created by my AI, like going out there. I think it has a few more days before it finishes the entire Southeast and pulls all of the land that we could possibly look at. And it doesn't necessarily give them the detail of like every little thing, but it gives them a baseline to work from. So that's not necessarily their job to underwrite. It's still on me as a human to do that piece. It's very close. It's getting very close, and it'll probably think through more things over time. It takes some time for it to like logically work from every little piece of detail in an underwriting sheet.
I definitely need to ask you to provide you have a website. Do you want to talk about your website? What's on there?
Yeah. If you go to my website, chadchoquette.com, it's just my first name, last name. You're going to see a bunch of stuff that I'm working on. You might see my Orbit program. You'll see some ways to connect with me, resources, things that I've used, everything from credit stacking to loans and other toolkits. And then you'll see probably some references to the AI agents and things that I sell. And then you'll see links out to my other brand called govertical.com, which is our ground up construction. So we do ground up construction primarily in the Southeast. We do have some partners in the Pacific Northwest and Houston that we're starting to work with, but we're building the big story of redevelopment. And right now it's the focus on raising capital for 506C debt fund. And also with some of our private investors, we have them involved with our projects. So we're just building things, single families, townhomes, subdivisions, multifamily, commercial, you name it, we're probably looking at it.
That sounds fantastic. I'm so proud of you. You have a lot of cool things going on and you have everything like system dialed in. I can't wait to chat with you again when I talk about how I set up my AI agent. Maybe I'll call you like, Chad, like this broke. And then, no, well, so glad to have you come into my circle and willing to come and share everything that you know about AI agent with our audience. So hopefully they can take this to the next step and just think about, is this the right time for them to start and who should I talk to start this journey? And I want to thank you again, Chad, for your time and knowledge to join us today in this episode.
Thank you very much.